There are many Americans that you'll talk to that initially supported aiding and assisting Ukraine. And then as we sent more and more money, and as the Pentagon couldn't account for $1 billion in weapons, and as we're not really sure where the accounting is going for this, we have a lot of concerns, as we should, because we're sending our hard-earned tax dollars to a corrupt country.
Why can't you help
that
Ukraine?
Russia's corrupt, but guess what's the number two?
Right.
Ukraine.
But why can't you help Ukraine and fix the southern border? Why does it have to be one or the other? America has the money to do this. It has the military firepower to help Ukraine. And it also has the ability, if it really focuses, to sort the southern border out. I don't understand this argument that America can't do two things at once. It's the number one superpower in the world, isn't it? I mean,
well, it would be nice if we could do two things at once.
So this is a great debate. It starts off with Piers Morgan and Tomi Lahren completely destroying Destiny. But then it moves on to Tomi Lahren destroying Piers Morgan. It's like a 2-for-1. So I really enjoyed putting this video together for you guys. I know you guys are going to enjoy it. So let's go ahead and just get it started.
Well, Tommy, let's just play a clip. This is of Trump doing his Biden impression the other day.
When I imitate Biden, who can't find the stairs ever, he goes like this. Thank you. Where am I? Thank you. And then he goes. And he points. And then.
You see, Tommy, the interesting thing with me about Trump, I've known him a long time. I look at him, warts and all, good, bad, ugly. There's plenty of all of that with Trump. But his supporters love him. And one of the reasons I think that he's so popular with so many Americans is because he makes them laugh. And I watched that speech the other day. He was very funny. Not always, and some of it, as always with Trump, some of the hyperbolic rhetoric was a bit alarming. But actually, he was an entertainer, entertaining the crowd. That's why they like him. That's why they vote for him.
They like him because he has charisma. I like him because he has charisma. I also like him because when Donald Trump was my president, the economy was doing well. We ended endless wars. We started no new wars. There was relatively peace around the world with Donald Trump at the helm of the United States of America. People didn't like what he tweeted. People didn't like the way that he spoke. Maybe they didn't like the way that he dressed or the way that his hairstyle was or his fake tan. But none of that mattered because the United States was doing well. Our border was secure. The world was a better place with Donald Trump at the helm. And when Democrats talk about Joe Biden and they say, oh, you know, he's slipping a little bit, my goodness, we know that they are obviously gaslighting us because we can clearly see that Joe Biden is not just slipping. He was slipping in 2020. He has slipped all the way now that we're in 2024. And it's not just little misspeaks here and there. Everybody has misspeaks. They mix people up. For Joe Biden, you have a special counsel report that quite plainly says we can't go after this man for his classified documents because he's a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. That says it all right there. Maybe we can indict him 96 times. We can't charge him with 96 things because he simply is not cognitively there enough to be able to withstand it. That's the leader of the United States. That's the best the Democrats can do for their party. I'm sorry. You guys better be shaking in your boots if that's what you're going to go with in November.
I mean, Destiny, you know, I know your view of Trump, but it's hard to argue with all of what Tommy just said, isn't it? I mean, the Democrats seem to me to be sleepwalking in to a complete disaster if they're not careful. Biden does look, from here across the pond anyway, like someone who can barely string a sentence together or stay on his own 2 feet. How would anyone vote for someone given they have to do 4 years more from November as President of the United States, the toughest job in the world?
I mean, it depends on what you're pushing for. I mean, if you want to elect a comedian because he's got good charisma, then I agree that Trump definitely has better stage presence than Biden does. I think if you're a Democrat, you want to support Biden, you just have to try to stick in the realm of fact. Republicans inhabit a totally separate world right now. I just heard Tomi Lahren say that we're doing better on the foreign policy front because Trump was better for being in endless wars. I mean, he bombed Syria. He abandoned Kurdish allies. He kicked the can down the road in Afghanistan. He hid Yemen drone strikes from us. He was still part of the Saudi-led coalition to bomb Yemen. He didn't do anything about Russia's takeover of Crimea. I mean, like, the idea that Trump was better on any of these areas of foreign policy is ridiculous. The idea that he was better domestically when he completely mishandled
Obama, by the way. That was
Obama's
Obama,
not my
my
anointed
friend.
one. That's great. But Trump still didn't do anything about it. Even if you think that Trump does have good ideas for the country, he has just failed as a leader. He's a failure of a businessman. He's a failure of a leader. He can't get people together to write legislation.
I got to break in for a second there and address those last 2 points. If Donald Trump is a failure as a businessman, Lord, let me fail like Donald Trump when it comes to business, because I would love to make $4 billion as a failed businessman, right? And to a second point there where he said that Donald Trump is a failure as a leader, well, you got to consider who had the majority in the House of Representatives. Nancy Pelosi was the speaker, and they rejected Trump and fought Trump and the Republicans at every turn, even to the point where they tried to impeach him twice, or they did, but it just didn't pass the Senate. So Destiny is a clown here. He likes to make all these points, and he throws them out real fast, and you don't get time to rebuttal when they're all nonsense.
Joe Biden, in all his senility, was somehow able to pass the same infrastructure bill that Donald Trump said for 4 years he was going to get done. He didn't. Donald Trump couldn't even repeal or replace Obamacare, which is what a lot of Republicans literally voted him to do. Like, the idea that Trump is a competent leader is anything more than just a comedian or a guy that does funny one-liners on Twitter is delusional.
I mean, you can blame him for many things, but as Tommy said, you can't blame him for the takeover of Crimea, because that was years before Trump came into power.
No, I'm not blaming him for the takeover of Crimea. I'm saying that Trump has never made a good but difficult foreign policy decision. If you look at the Doha agreement that he made with the Taliban, he kicked the can down the road. He says that he would be strong on Ukraine. The only thing he cared about for Ukraine was trying to get information about Hunter Biden.
What about what Joe Biden did in Afghanistan, which was the most shameful and disgraceful overnight fleeing of a country and throwing millions of Afghan women back to the Taliban walls? Now, you can blame Trump all you like for that, but the bottom line is it happened under Joe Biden on his watch. He was president. It was a catastrophic failure, that evacuation. So many allies and friends of the Americans were left in its wake. Many people died that day. And women in Afghanistan have gone back to the medieval dark ages. That's on Joe Biden, isn't it?
So not only was it a catastrophic failure of Joe Biden and his administration, it was a complete surrender from Joe Biden and his administration to the Taliban. Joe Biden surrendered to the Taliban and betrayed our allies over in that region. And in the process of his surrender, he surrendered to the Taliban Bagram Air Force Base that cost American taxpayers $96 million to build in 2006. I don't know what the inflated value of that would be in 2024 to this day, but when you consider all the equipment that we put in there, all the, the weapons, the jeeps, the jets, the helicopters, everything that was left behind, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more, in complete surrender to the Taliban. And then also on top of that, the geographical location of that base is invaluable. The value of that is immeasurable, in my opinion, when it comes to American strength around the world. And there's no getting it back.
So I've gone back to the medieval dark ages. That's on Joe Biden, isn't it?
No. If you read the Special Inspector General report for Afghanistan, the whole reason why that pullout happened on that timetable was because of the Doha agreements that Donald Trump signed. He drew our troop levels down to historic lows in Afghanistan for when Biden came into office because Donald Trump put America on a timetable to leave that country. If Biden wanted to, he could have come in and undone that.
So just to be clear though, Destiny, you're blaming Donald Trump for a decision that was taken 8 months after he left office.
That decision was taken under Donald Trump. The timetable was established under Donald Trump.
He didn't have to stick to it. Joe Biden's a big boy. He's the president of the United States. I mean, Tommy, it seems to me that the desperate attempts...
Is he a big boy, Piers? Is he a big boy? I'm not so sure. He has to use the kitty stairs. But I just have to jump in here because I don't think anybody wanted to stay in Afghanistan. That wasn't the point. The timetable that Donald Trump negotiated, there was nothing wrong with the timetable. Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan was catastrophic. He didn't have the support that he needed. He didn't have the strategy that he needed. It wasn't about staying in Afghanistan in perpetuity. Nobody wanted that. I'm sure Democrats didn't want to be in an endless war in Afghanistan either. It was the way that Biden handled it. And every time since then, he has failed when it comes to foreign policy. Now we've got Israel at war. We've got Ukraine still and heading into year, 2.5 of war that we are still funding. The world is a much more dangerous place. And that doesn't even bring me to my southern border where we have have 10 million illegal immigrants who have invaded on Biden's watch. I'm sure my friend is going to tell me that that is Donald Trump's fault as well, even though he oversaw the most secure border that we believe in American history that we know of. So there is no disputing the record. You can say that Joe Biden was able to sit there as a shadow president while things got passed through Democrat chambers, but you can't sit here and tell me that the man is cognitively well or that he's done anything on his own accord to better the world of the United States.
Well, let me ask Destiny.
My friend, you know this.
Let me ask Destiny my favorite question of all my liberal friends, which is, do you know how many illegal immigrants Barack Obama deported in 8 years?
How many illegal immigrants did he deport, or did they have
did he have
contact with
Did he
at the
have
border?
deported, thrown out of the country?
I don't know the number of that.
Have a guess.
For when you say deport, you mean somebody that was already in the country, and then they were caught
removed.
in the country and removed. My guess is those numbers are always fairly low. Probably less than 1 million. I have no idea. I truly have no idea.
3 million, which is the greatest number pro rata of any president in history, and earned him the moniker in Mexico of deporter-in-chief. And yet, oddly, whenever I talk to my liberal friends, they never know this. They never made a fuss at the time. They were quite comfortable about that happening. And I look at what's going on the southern border now. Apparently, Biden's going down the same day as Trump on Thursday, which will be fascinating. But he hasn't been there I don't think he may have been once before in his time as president, which is insane, given how obviously problematic the southern border has become. Whichever side of the political divide you're on, would you accept that?
Would I accept that the border is a problem?
Well, not only a massive problem, but that President Biden, to date, in his tenure, has done absolutely nothing but make it worse.
I don't know about absolutely nothing but make it worse. I think one of the issues right now is Republicans are holding up funding to actually apportion more money to border security. I think that there are definitely border problems that exist right now that definitely need attention. But I think comparing it to Donald Trump, when he was able to utilize the emergency of COVID and the fact that the immigration numbers were at historic lows over the COVID period, and then to say that, well, look, he did a way better job than Biden did, where once COVID ends and then everything starts to open up again, you see a huge surge of immigrants, isn't the most fair comparison. But obviously, yes, something needs to be done with the border, of course. And I hope that Republicans approve funding in Congress for something to actually be done.
Well, Tomi, that's an interesting point where I would be critical, I think, of your position on this, because I absolutely believe that Ukraine has got to be helped to defeat Putin, or at least hold him off, because the alternative for the West, it seems to me, is extremely dangerous and alarming, which is that Vladimir Putin seizes large chunks of a sovereign democratic country and is allowed to keep it. And the idea that won't embolden him to just go and do the same elsewhere, I think is for the birds. I also think it's for the birds that China, looking at this, won't then immediately think about invading and taking back Taiwan.
Well, I would also say this. If Donald Trump were our president right now, Putin would have never done that because he didn't when Donald Trump was in office. We mentioned earlier under Obama, they go in, take Crimea. Under Biden, go in and try to take Ukraine. So Donald Trump, we'll just say, he started no new wars. And the world was either respectful of Donald Trump or fearful, doesn't matter which. I would also say this. We don't, on my side, when I talk about not funding Ukraine anymore, it's not because we want Putin to take Ukraine. It's because we understand that here in the United States of America, we have more problems that we have to attend to. We've got homeless veterans. We've got a border invasion of our own. So the thought of sending more money, more weapons to Ukraine.
I keep hearing this, but I find it really odd to hear any American conservatives almost saying Putin should be allowed to just take what he's taken. That would never have happened 20 years ago in American political discourse. There's been a massive sea change in conservative mentality to how to deal with a Russian dictator. But secondly, on the wider point about Ukraine, surely it comes down to this. If we applied the same mentality to Adolf Hitler in World War II, we'd all be likely speaking German. Why are we so weak about standing up to him in Ukraine? It's the same as when Hitler invaded Poland.
How is it that you find it odd, Piers, that American conservatives don't want to fund your country's defenses and our own both at the same time. What is it about conservatism that you don't understand? We don't want to spend more money. There's nothing conservative about taking care of your country's defenses because you're scared of Putin if he takes over Ukraine, that he's going to come for you next. You say that we would all be speaking German. Well, maybe you would, but if it wasn't for American tax dollars and American lives going over there to defend you, you would be speaking German. Not in America. He wouldn't have come over here and won, I can promise you that. So stop giving me this nonsense and this expectation that American taxpayers should be funding our own defenses and yours. When was the last time NATO pitched in for America's defense? When was the last time any of our allies pitched in for our own defense over here in the United States? We're being invaded across the southern border from all these countries that are sending people to Central America that are coming up through our border, and NATO is not supplying one bit of defense money for us. So where's that? Why is it expected for us to pay for you and to pay for us? Why can't we just say, you know what? Why don't you guys take care of yourselves for a minute while we take care of our problems? I'm tired of America's allies, NATO, being our foreign welfare system recipients. You guys just take, and when we don't give enough, you say that it's our problem for not being able to defend ourselves and you. No, it's not. It's not anymore. That's why we need Donald Trump.
Piers, it's not the same because Ukraine is a corrupt country. So we also have to deal with that. There are many Americans that you'll talk to that initially supported aiding and assisting Ukraine. And then as we sent more and more money, and as the Pentagon couldn't account for $1 billion in weapons, and as we're not really sure where the accounting is going for this, we have a lot of concerns, as we should, because we're sending our hard-earned tax dollars to a corrupt country.
Why can't you help
that
Ukraine?
Russia's corrupt, but guess what's the number two?
Right.
Ukraine.
But why can't you help Ukraine and fix the southern border? Why does it have to be one or the other? America has the money to do this. It has the military firepower to help Ukraine. And it also has the ability, if it really focuses, to sort the southern border out. I don't understand this argument that America can't do two things at once. It's the number one superpower in the world, isn't it? I mean,
well, it would be nice if we could do two things at once. With a stroke of a pen, President Biden could help solve the border crisis. He is not going to do that. It's not a matter of can you, it's a matter of are our leaders able to, and unfortunately they're not. But when you look at Ukraine, which is a corrupt country, and we're sending our tax dollars over there for now going on over 2 years, it's problematic for a lot of Americans. A lot of Americans don't know where our money is going. We don't know how it's being accounted for. We don't trust our government or theirs to tell us where it's going. So that's where the problem lies.
Okay, let me bring in.
And we also believe if we really want to squeeze Putin and we want to squeeze Russia, but Piers, I want to say this. We should be focusing also on American energy independence, because when you have strong American energy independence, that's another way
but
that
America broadly has one. America has broadly more energy independence than most countries in the world. So that's not a big problem. Your independence for energy is very strong compared to most European countries.
Am I the only one that thinks this, that Piers is coming off as a pompous asshole taker that wants to just spend American tax dollars on everything else that has to benefit him? Saying that America is independently stronger than other countries when it comes to energy production, when we know that our energy production is down compared to the way that it was when we had Donald Trump as the leader. And regardless of how strong it is, you can never be too strong when it comes to that. Energy is what being energy independent is what creates jobs. It creates opportunities. It allows for more people to actually survive. And from that position of strength, then you do have the ability to go out and help other countries. But saying that you guys are good enough, now give me more, that's bullshit. Tomi Lahren just completely destroyed Piers Morgan with that last little bit there. I love it. I love watching this girl debate. It's too bad that she doesn't get on more debates, because I just think that she handles herself so well. And I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.